Welcome to the QE webinar open evening. I hope you are okay there at home, and I'll run through who's here in a minute, and you can then perhaps ask some questions afterwards. So my name is Kevin Fields, and I teach Business A-Level and OCR A-Level Business and OCR Business. Nichola Brothwood is on the right at the top there. She teaches A-Level Business and OCR Business. Louise Farnell is the head of subject, and she teaches Economics and Business. And David John, on the right at the bottom there, he teaches Business and Economics. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you an introduction into each course, and then you can have a chance to ask some questions. So if we start with David, do you think you can tell us, David, about the A-Level Business course?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. So all of us actually teach on the A-Level Business course, and I'd say that the A-Level Business course is a really quite sort of dynamic subject topic, because we're continually sort of looking at current events, what's happening in the real world, and sort of applying business theory. So, you know, for example, we're looking at the impact of the pandemic on businesses. We're looking at the impact of Brexit on businesses. We're looking at online trading and the impact that that's had on the high street. So kind of looking very much at sort of current events and relating it into the topic of business. In the first year, if you decide to take business as an A-level course, in the first year, we're really trying to build your essential knowledge of the subject. So it's quite broad in terms of the topics that we're covering. So for example, we'll look at marketing. We'll look a little bit at demand and supply, which is a little bit economicsy. We'll look at external influences on businesses. We'll look at people within business and what motivates them. We'll look at different entrepreneurs, why people become entrepreneurs, and we'll look at sort of business startups. Within that first year as well, we also look at finance. So there is a financial element. So we'll look at end of year accounts that businesses produce. We'll also look at stock control within businesses, something called capacity utilization as well. So there is a number element to the course, but it's fairly straightforward maths. In the second year, we are looking to develop your understanding from the first year. And we look at two particular units, two themes. One of them is about business strategy and decision making. So we're looking at different tools that businesses will use to help make decisions, as well as tools that they'll use to develop strategy. All right. And the final unit that we look at, which is actually, we've just started it with the second years, we're looking at global businesses. So we're looking at why businesses might decide to locate outside of the UK and locate in different countries, and the factors that they will take into account. If you're thinking about doing A-level business, the entry requirements, we are looking for English and maths at the level 5, but we don't expect you to have studied GCSE business beforehand. So if you're coming in on the course never having done business, that's fine. We start right from the basics. The final thing I just wanted to say was about assessments. With this course, it is assessed entirely through exams. So at the end of the 2 years, you will sit 3 papers, and each paper lasts for 2 hours, and you're basically given resource material within the exam, and you answer the questions based on that resource material. We really do prepare you quite well for the exams in terms of structure, so there's no worries around that. Okay, so that's me done, Kevin.
Okay, thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you, that was great. Yes, some really interesting points there about business. A-level, that is. Perhaps we can move on now to the OCR in business, the OCR applied course, Nichola.
Yeah, that's fine. So the OCR business course is a Cambridge technical, and it is level 3 equivalent, so it's the same level as A level, but the difference here is the assessment. So the way the course is structured, in the first year, you will do the certificate, and that's made up of an exam and a piece of coursework. Now, the exam that we do is actually double weighting, and what that means is it covers a number of areas that David spoke about what is covered in the first year of the A-level course. And that's really important because it sets the scene for the other areas that you will look at as you go through the course. So, for example, we'll look at the different types of business. We'll look at kind of, what objectives they're going to set themselves when they start up and as the business grows. We also will look at some financial aspects, certainly how managers can use certain tools such as cash flow forecasting to assist decision making in the business. And we also look at the external environment as well. So David mentioned there about the pandemic and the influence that has on business, and that would be an example, but there's lots of other influences as well. And we spend a lot of time looking at that, preparing students for the exam. So then what happens in the second year after achieving the certificate, you then would move on and do 2 other pieces of coursework, and you would do another exam. Now, this exam is slightly different. It's a lot more focused, and it's about working in the business environment. So the skills that you would need to demonstrate and to kind of make you an employee that you could put forward yourself, that you're kind of fully aware of the protocols that you would find in the workplace, whether that be following confidentiality legislation, the different documents that you used in business. So it's a really interesting exam and unit. In terms of the coursework, we do look at lots of different bits. So we look at marketing, we look at human resources, and we look at customer service. And how the coursework works is you look at the theory, but you get to really investigate a particular business in a lot of depth, and you can apply the theory to that business. And quite often you're looking at the practices that they have currently and making recommendations on what they could do to improve. So that's what happens in the second year, and that is what then builds you to what we call the extended certificate, which is the equivalent of a full A level. So I think I've covered everything there, Kevin.
Yeah, okay. I don't know, did we mention the entry requirements for the OCR?
I didn't. Do you want me to go through that? Do you want to
yeah, okay, if you know.
Yeah. So maths and English, again, because obviously you have to put your written answers together and you are producing reports, we look for a 4 in English. And also because of the mathematical element in the examined unit, it's a 4 in maths as well.
Okay, that's good. And it's 50% exam and 50% coursework, just to confirm that.
Yeah.
As the difference between the A level being 100% exam and the OCR being 50-50. Okay, thank you. Next, we've got Louise, who is the head of economics. And she's going to tell us about that.
Okay, well, I'm not going to take too long because I appreciate that the webinar ticks away, and there's some questions coming in which we will, I promise, get to. So economics, we ask that you have GCSE grade 5 and 6 in maths and English, either way round. However, it is examined through papers. It's 100% examination. There are some extended answers, so English is key. We ask for maths level as well because economics is a social science. So in that way, there's this scientific investigation but that's translated in economics as using lots of numerical data and diagrams and interpretation of diagrams, and that's how the science bit comes in and your maths knowledge. Economics, you probably haven't studied it before. So economics splits into two branches, the microeconomics and the macroeconomics, but they're both involved in trying to answer the basic economic problem, which is that we have finite resources but infinite wants, and this is the economic problem. How do we ensure that everybody gets what they need when we haven't got enough to go around? And fundamentally, that's what we discuss. On the surface, that doesn't sound very interesting, but once you get going with economics, it's one of those subjects that picks up a pace and becomes more and more interesting the more that you study it. So our first years this morning have just been looking at environmental market failure, about pollution and how we can reduce pollution and the methods of government intervention, and looking at the problems that if we don't have private property rights, how our commons, which we call the tragedy of the commons, can be overused and exploited. So we've been building up our micro economic knowledge, and that's how individuals make decisions. The next topic that we look at is macroeconomic, and that's probably what a lot of people think about economies. You think about Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, making economic decisions every day, spending money, giving grants, furlough, how are we going to pay it back? All of that is our study of macroeconomics, the objectives that, regardless of whether you're Labour or Conservative, macroeconomic objectives tend to be the same. It's just that you go about it in a different way. So we look at how the economies are run as well. So that's a bit of a fly through, because I know that we've got lots of information on the website. If you want to go onto our pages on there, there's plenty to see. But should we tackle some of these questions that have been coming in? And please feel free to ask any more questions that you need to. Do you want me to set off with these questions?
Yes, please.
Would it make a difference if I chose both business and economics compared to if I chose economics and something else? What do you think, David?
So what was the question? It was choosing economics and business together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we do have students currently, and obviously in the past, where they have chosen economics and business. So they've chosen A-level economics and they've chosen A-level business. And that does work. There is a little bit of overlap between the two subjects, but it's not a huge amount. If you are thinking of applying to, say, Oxford or Cambridge, and I think also LSE, London School of Economics, that they're not too keen on that combination. But for the other universities, they generally are fine with it.
Although we did have somebody got an interview at Oxford with
Oh, right.
business, okay. But you know, it depends on the college, I think.
Yes.
Definitely LSE don't take the combination together. Are there sets for all the subjects? Nicola, would you like to?
No, there isn't sets. You just have like different groups, and those groups are very much dependent on the options that you choose, your other subject combinations on there. So in terms of being set of ability, then no.
Yeah, Kevin, somebody's asking here, can you do business studies and business technical together?
No, we wouldn't advise you doing that. I think there's far too much overlap between the two courses, really. I think it's one or the other, really, based on, you know, your results and, you know, what you plan to do in the future, perhaps.
I think that's a good question that's been raised there, because you know, whilst you can do business and economics together, the two businesses, you're right, they overlap and they wouldn't be accepted by universities. It's too much overlap. You'd be fed up with it, I think, if you did it to that extent. Here's another question: is business a difficult A level? What do we think to that, David? Is it difficult?
I don't think many A-levels are difficult, as long as you kind of do the work that you've actually set and you kind of get involved within the subject and sort of, getting involved in classroom discussions. Is A-level business difficult? Well, there is obviously knowledge within the subject, and there will be certain areas that you kind of like really enjoy doing, and there's, you know, for example, marketing or something to do with personnel. There might be other elements in it which you just naturally maybe not quite as good at the maths and maybe struggling with the finance element. I don't think it's not any harder or easier than any other subject, really. I don't think. Yeah,
I would agree, and I think what makes something hard is when you don't work at it. But if you prepare to work, put the effort in, keep up to date, and all our wonderful advice and experience, then you're on the right track.
Yeah.
Would I be doing A-level or OCR, doing business technical level 3, Nichola?
Yeah, it very much depends on yourself, really. So obviously, one of the things that we spoke about there that makes that different is the entry requirements. So level 4 for the technical, level 5 for A-level and above. And then sometimes it just comes down to personal preference. Students do sometimes perhaps like having that opportunity to have that ongoing assessment with coursework. So they're the two things that you would think about in terms of making that decision.
Yeah, good. That's right. Yes, it's up to you. And you, on enrolment, hopefully be able to come in and talk to us. And like I said, keep looking at our website, because they really tell you and give you some examples of the differences between the two courses. David, it says here, are there still 9 and 6 mark questions in the business exam?
Okay, so an interesting question. In the A-level exam, we have 4 mark questions, we have 8 mark questions, we have 10 mark questions, 12 mark and 20 mark questions. So I don't think any of those ones that you actually, was it 9 and a 6? But we have a particular way of answering them, a particular structure, and we have what we use chains of reasoning or analysis, and we just work on those throughout the 2 years. So whatever question, whether it's the 4, the 10, the 8, the 12, or the 20, you'll be well equipped to actually answer those questions.
Yeah, and the skills for one type of question do support the skills that you required for another as well. Kevin, what about this? How many lessons are there per week?
There are 5 hours a week, spread over 4 days. All right, so you usually have 1 day without your subject. So it's 5 hours. That's 2 1.5 hours and 3 1-hour sessions. 2 1-hour sessions even. Math skills. You need maths. Yeah, so 5 hours for each subject, and the majority of students take 3 subjects, and they have tutorial as well on top of that.
Of course, it must be remembered, mustn't it, that the 5 hours that you do in class need to be doubled up at home with your additional work, and that isn't just through the homework that we provide, that's through that enjoyment of doing additional reading. So I often say to my students, I hope you're watching Inside the Factory. Sometimes Country Files quite good, economic news, business news, Dragon's Den, all of those sorts of programs help you with the terminology. And there's a great film on at the moment for economics on BBC iPlayer, The Big Short, which explains why the financial crash happened. But it's really good for understanding the world economy. So the last question that I've got here, so if you've got another question, do put it in, because we do have a couple of minutes to answer, is does LSE like economics better? Better than, probably better than business, yes. Better than other subjects, no. LSE is a traditional university and it likes the usual ones, so it will equally like history to economics. But it depends on the degree, and that's something that you need to look at. Focus on what degree it is that you want to do and look at what requirements are required by that university. Okay, I'm seeing it's 7:49. I think we go into an automatic cut-off. So thank you for joining us. I hope that you found it useful. And with that, we'll finish.
Thank you very much.